Okay, let me make sure I'm online. Okay, hello, I'm Alex from A.P.Ink. So today I'm going to be trying to finish this. So it's meant to be a kind of collection of Easter patterns. I don't know how many of them are actually Easter patterns, but so I'm working on this reference. I'll give you the same reference. Um, I want to add more to this one. I'm trying to remember which one of these eggs I was looking at for each of these. I'm not really sure. In the meantime, I was thinking maybe some kind of floral, like maybe leaves and um like branches, leaves and flowers. I was gonna measure it out, but maybe I should freehand it? I'm not sure. Just to break up the black. So every half inch. Okay, so think before this one is supposed to be based on this one, but I could kind of play with a pattern idea. So I'm measuring up a 1/2 inch from the bottom. I think I'm going to give this one a bit of a border. So I measured up a 1/16 of an inch from there. And then I think a 1/4 of an inch. And then another 1/16 of an inch. I'm not sure my measurements are the same on both sides. They're not. 1/2 inch would be here. And then a 1/16 of an inch. So 1/2 inch there, 1/16 of an inch for the border. From there, that mark is a 1/4 inch, and then a 1/16 of an inch up from there. That's kind of confusing because I messed up, but let me see if I can fix it. So just to make sure my measurements are correct. I don't know if that's really straight. It kind of looks crooked. I think to measure down a 1/4 of an inch from the top, just so that this isn't the only pattern. And I think maybe a 1/16 of an inch down from there, kind of mimic the wider line. I'm going to try to fill this in. Okay, for the pattern, I mean, I can't fix it now. Just not sure how I got so far off. Okay. Um, I'm gonna measure up from the top line 1/16 of an inch. And then using those marks, I think I'll measure over 1/4 of an inch. I'm gonna measure, I think, 1/16 of an inch out, and then 1/4 of an inch out from there. Okay, and then so this is a 1/16 of an inch down from the first top line. I think I want to measure down on this side. And I'm going to measure across every 1/4 inch. And then I think I want to measure from that top point to the second dot that I just made. And then I think, just to complicate the pattern further, I'm going to try to have my ruler lined up with that center point for each one and put a dot a 1/16 of an inch up from the bottom top line here. Okay, and then I'm just gonna fill in these double lines. Okay, aside from the fact that it's not straight, I probably should have made it a bit bigger. I might go over that again after it's dried. Try to layer up the translucent white. Okay, I think for this one, I think maybe I was looking at this egg, that egg there. The ink might be dry, but just to make sure, I'm going to hold it in front of a fan for a minute. Okay, so there's like a shiny, or at least what looks like kind of a shiny diamond pattern. So I'm going to measure up 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, and then 1/16 of an inch up from that. So 1/4 inch, and then 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so from the top line, I'm going to measure up 1/4 of an inch, on both sides. And then from those marks, think I'm gonna measure up, measure across. I think starting at 1/8 of an inch, and then 1/4 inch after that. And then along that top line, I'm going to measure across 1/4 inch. And then from here, I'm just going to connect. The pattern that I'm seeing looks a bit more rounded than just triangles, but I think I'm already being a bit more precise maybe than necessary, so I'm just gonna stick with simple shapes. Okay, and then I think up from the top points here, I'm gonna measure up I think 1/2 inch. And then measure across. So I'm gonna measure, I think, every 1/4 inch. So I think every 1/2 inch, maybe. This is the center point. I'm measuring down 1/4 inch. And then maybe for these other ones, 1/8 of an inch. And then from there, so here I had created a pattern that was one circle with 2 circles on either side and then 1 circle. I'm gonna try to recreate that pattern here. Okay, and then for here, use that same pattern just on a slightly bigger scale. So I think from this line, I'm going to measure up 1/2 an inch. Just trying to make sure I'm straight across here, because it doesn't look straight. Maybe it is. think I'm gonna go up a 1/16 of an inch from that mark I just made. And I'm just gonna fill in the lines and then fill this in too. Okay, I'm gonna go over this again. I could, I guess, try to go over it with a white posca pen. Try and get rid of that kind of orangey yellow color that bled through. I'm just gonna go over in the bigger areas. Okay, I'm gonna give that a minute to dry. So the next one is a blue colored egg. Might be kind of simple, but you do something like that with just across the center to have some kind of decorative band, and then I can ink over the top half with a different color. That's still kind of wet. Of course, I don't remember what color I used on this square. Maybe I had used mint green light. Okay, if this is the mint green, see, I'd also used forest green. Maybe that's what color it is. I'm really not sure. To look at it, I think this is also crooked. Anyways. Okay, I think this one was pastel, blue, and yellow green. I'm just trying to figure if I did that like half and half, what color I could potentially use to go over the top half. Probably a different color, a darker green. Maybe turquoise green. If I should go half and half, or if I should push it up. This would be half. Yeah, let's just do that. I was thinking to push it up like 2/3, 1/3, but I'm gonna push the pattern up into the secondary color. I could go complicated with the pattern, but I'm thinking just simple stripes. I think to give the lines some depth, I measured a 1/16 of an inch on either side of the original dash mark point I had made, but I want to make sure that I'm actually doing this straight across on the other side. Okay, I don't know if I'm actually being straight here, but I'm trying. Yeah, that's not straight. Now I'm just going to go through and fill in between the lines to make the stripes a bit easier to see. So I'm just going to go in and fill in and then I think I'll go over the gel pen with a posca pen. I do apologize for anybody watching this who maybe has had enough of all of the Easter. I just kind of had a lot I wanted to try to do and couldn't decide, and then things kind of have taken longer to accomplish than what I meant. Art takes the time that it takes. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. For the lighter green, I think maybe I was looking at this one. So that's what I'm going to do on the last inked one. But I think before I get into inking or decorating the last one, I'm going to ink these so that they have a chance to dry before I get there. This is not dry. I'm thinking about a couple more two-toned. So I'm looking at that one that is like almost looks like fuchsia with yellow stripes. This one that is half and half with a decorative element in the center, and maybe that one that is also like fuchsia with yellow. This one almost looks like a face, so maybe like a chick face, which I haven't done anything like if you could actually make that out. I haven't done any kind of faces. I don't know if I actually want to do one with a face, but I'm thinking maybe fluorescent rose and maybe pastel peach. Fluorescent rose. Pastel peach. So maybe just to kind of separate them out so it's not just like clumped fuchsia and yellow. I'll do every other one. So I'm measuring. Okay, I was gonna do like a ½ inch down, but there isn't enough room for 2 stripes. So maybe just measure a ½ inch on the top, and then to measure up a ½ inch. Trying to be light with this. So, fluorescent rose, pastel peach, fluorescent rose, pastel peach, fluorescent rose. And then I'll come back in when I go to ink to try to create what looks like dots. Okay, and then for this one, I'm gonna measure in the center, so an inch up, and then I think I'll measure down a 1/16 of an inch. I will switch off. That was a 2H pencil. I'm going to switch to a 2B pencil so it's a little bit easier to see. Still trying to be light. And then from there, I'm going to measure down a 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to measure from this edge a 1/4, no, 1/8 of an inch, and then a 1/4 of an inch after that. And then from this bottom line, I'm going to measure over a 1/4, every 1/4 inch. And then to create that flag pattern, so fuchsia, yellow, and then this will be white. And then for this one, it looks like maybe down a 1/2 inch and then a 1/4 inch. This will be straight. It looks like there's actually some kind of pattern going on here, but I can't make out what it is. So, using that second line, I'm going to mark over every 1/4 inch. And just because I haven't done this a whole lot, I'm going to, from the first line I drew, I think 1/8 of an inch, and then every 1/4 inch after that. And then to measure, I think 1/8 of an inch. From the tick mark that I just did. And then to try to create a kind of scallop look from that tick mark, second tick mark that I just did. I didn't necessarily need the first set of tick marks, but just so I could kind of try to have this measured out. Okay. That'll be yellow. And then I think maybe from the line to measure down a 1/2 inch. Nope, that wasn't a 1/2 inch. Maybe 3/4 of an inch. So there. And then I think a 1/4 inch down from there. I can't tell what's going on here, but that you can see that fuchsia coming through. Maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, I'd almost say maybe some kind of lattice, but I think I'll measure from the bottom up a 1/4 inch. So I think pastel peach, fluorescent rose, pastel peach, fluorescent rose, pastel peach, fluorescent rose. let me just go ahead and do this now. So to find the center of these stripes, so I think every 1/4 of an inch. So fluorescent rose, pastel peach, with a fluorescent rose dot in the center, fluorescent rose, pastel peach with the fluorescent rose in the center, and then fluorescent rose. Okay, so for this one, going back to this green egg to try and put in a pattern that kind of resembles what's going on here. So I'm going to measure up a 1/2 inch. And then I think a 1/4 inch from there. I feel like I've done this pattern somewhere. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just because so many of these patterns are so similar. Actually, I think I'll give myself more space here. So I think to measure up a 1/2 inch, then I think I'm not sure what's supposed to be going on in the center here. You can actually see the blue egg through the green egg. But I think what I'm gonna do is find the center, which is here. And then maybe every 1/2 inch. I'll come back in and put maybe like a flower pattern or something. Um, I was gonna do this kind of pattern here, but maybe what I'll do is measure down and then measure up 1/16 of an inch, and I'll do a secondary color. I don't know, that might be a bit too simple, but I don't think there's any rule that says it has to be complicated. I think this is lime green. I want to see how muddy it might be if I added kind of like a yellowish orange on top of that. I'm not sure which one I want to go with, so let's try both of them. So BK9. It's coming through, but I don't know why that looks weird to me. Okay, melon yellow. It's almost like the BK9 actually ate through the lemon or lime green. It would be different, so I guess we'll try the BK9. It's kind of interesting that this yellow is showing up on top of the green. Yellows tend to be kind of a delicate color. So like you can draw on top of yellow, but you can't necessarily draw yellow on top of other colors, depending on what the medium is. Like paint is one thing, but markers don't necessarily work like that. Excuse me. I will come back later and erase the pencil. So I guess as long as that works, we can try and do a kind of flower. I don't know if those are actually going to come off looking like flowers. Okay, I meant to actually come back before and erase the pencil here. I don't know if you all were actually able to see the pencil on this one still. While I'm at it. Okay, so going through and doing the 3 that I've already marked out. Okay, I think fluorescent rose first. And then the pastel peach, and then I'll go back in and put those dots in. To decide if I want to use the bullet nib or the chisel nib. fluorescent rose dots. Okay, next one, fluorescent rose on the bottom. Hopefully, well, I didn't really intend on having fluorescent rose next to fluorescent rose, but that's okay. Pastel peach. Okay, I will go over that where the ink bled with white gel pen. Okay, for this one, pastel peach, pastel peach, pastel peach, fluorescent rose, Fluorescent rose. Fluorescent rose. Okay. Excuse me. So I'm going to go back in and try to erase pencil. Hello. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to clean up where the ink bled here. White gel pen. Pretty good. How are you? Right here on the kind of blobby flowers, it probably won't help at all. I'm gonna, just with a white posca pen in the center where I put the indicator ticks for where they go, just like a white dot for the flower center. That white gel pen doesn't do as much coverage as I want, so just to try to touch it up with the white Posca pen, I'm going to let that dry a minute in front of a fan and decide what I want to do for the last two. I'm kind of thinking maybe something a bit more organic, so maybe like freehand flowers of some sort. That's still wet. Do you like doodling too, Ravis? Or are you just hanging out? Okay, I think that's dry. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe something along like this for these two. You doodle sometimes? Just to decide exactly how I want to do this, or like what I want to do. If I want to go full, like, free, or if I want to kind of measure it out like I did here. Maybe I'll try to do this one 100% free, but I've got this idea about kind of quartering this panel and having some kind of flowery vine reach towards the center on all four quadrants. So just measuring for the center and then half-inch ticks on either side of that. Excuse me. I try to stream Monday through Friday. Today I'm just trying to finish this up. So I've got black fine liners. I think I'll go 0.7. Thank you. So I'll come back in a minute and erase that pencil. Okay, I am going to do this one a bit more freehand, but I feel like giving it a kind of border. So to find the center, and then I think to measure down a 1/4 inch up, and then over a 1/4 inch all the way around. And then I'm just going to try to round the edges, connecting the dots. Try and actually get my circle to look circular. Not really looking as circular as I'd like it. And I think to kind of continue that border look, to try to put scallops here, kind of creating a frame. Okay, and then I think I'll use a 1.0 to fill this in. giving that a minute to dry. Go back and erase the pencil here. Erase the pencil here. And I managed to rip some of the paper because I didn't give it enough time to dry. So patching that. I'm going to hang that in front of a fan for a minute. So I think I'm going to use the same 0.7 fine liner to put in the kind of flower kind of bouquet I'm thinking about. So just freehand. If I should keep the background paper white or ink it a color. See, I'm kind of thinking if I ink it, maybe to go brown. I don't know, it just seems like the way to go, brown. I think maybe I'll just leave it as is. Okay, so obviously I could have been cleaner in some spots for where the ink bled, but I think I'm gonna leave this one here. You think I should ink it a color? Maybe yellow ochre? Thank you. Okay. So I am gonna leave this one here. Thank you, Ravis, for hanging out. Thank you to anybody else who watched or watches. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you. Bye.